Hey everybody. So we are going to look at the circulatory system next. So remember yesterday we looked at the skeletal system and the muscular system, and I put those two together because you really can't separate them actually. So those are put together, and in this section for today we're going to do the circulatory system and the respiratory system. And those two systems, like the skeletal and the muscular system, they really cannot be separated. And the more you learn about all of these body systems, you're going to realize that none of them can really be separated, that they all work perfectly well when you're healthy, and each does an individual job. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this first slide. And what the first slide does is it basically just tells you what the major components are in the circulatory system. So the first one is obviously right the most important in this system, and that would be the heart. And your heart is about the size of a clenched fist, and it's a little bit to the left, a little bit to the left of center, under your sternum, right underneath the bone here. And so what its job is basically, it's to pump blood all around the body. But it's not just blood that it pumps around the body, right? It pumps water around the body, it pumps oxygen to cells, it brings nutrients to cells, and it takes the garbage away, right? It takes carbon dioxide away from your body. Right? Remember when your cells undergo cellular respiration, one of the byproducts is carbon dioxide. Well, your body, your circulatory system is the road by which that can happen, and it carries it away, brings it to the lungs, and it gets dumped out. So it's really a remarkable combination of systems. So you have the heart. The second thing is the blood vessels. So you have this big honking muscle, right? And remember, it has cardiac muscle. So you have this big honking cardiac muscle cardiac muscle organ in your chest, and it has to bring everything around. Well, how does it get there, right? Well, from the heart, you have arteries, and arteries go away from the heart. We're going to get into this a little bit more. And then you have capillaries and you have veins. And those are the three types of main blood vessels. So you have the heart, then you have the blood vessels, which moves the blood around. And so then the last thing is actually the blood. And so we think of blood and we think of it as being red. The thing is, blood is a mixture. So blood has a colorless liquid in it called plasma. And so when you go to the doctors and they take your blood, they centrifuge, they spin it really, 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 really fast. And when they take it out, all your blood cells are sitting at the bottom of the tube, and the clear plasma is actually at the top of the tube. And so what the heck makes up your blood then? Well, obviously lots of water makes up your blood, right? Lots of blood cells. You have red blood cells, you have white blood cells, and in fact you have different kinds of white blood cells. There are platelets in your blood. So when you cut yourself, platelets are what like rushes to the injury and forms the clot. You have antibodies in your in your blood, right? And antibodies are the things that fight infections. And so blood is a mixture. Blood is not just one thing. And you're going to see in a little bit that depending on if it's going to the heart or if it's coming away from the heart, it actually is different colors, right? And so when we think of blood as being bright red, it's bright red when it's exposed to the air. Okay. When you have blood taken, if you remember that little tube that it comes in, it's almost like a dark cranberry color. And it's because they take it from a vein, right? So it's already dumped off its oxygen in the cells. And so if they're taking it from a vein, they're taking a sample of blood that's actually deoxygenated, right? When you cut yourself, it's not always a vein, right? You cut yourself, it's bright red. When it's inside, it's darker. As it hits oxygen, it actually oxidizes, so it becomes a brighter color, right? So we're looking at the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood, which is a mixture of a bunch of different things. And we move on to the next slide. So I searched high and low to add GIF files to this PowerPoint. So We know that the heart is the main organ, right? Everything is connected to it. It pumps everything that you need to your cells. Again, it pumps blood, it pumps nutrients. What does it pump away? It pumps away the waste gases. So your heart has two sides, right? So you have the left side. And when we're looking at this, it's your left side, right? So this would be if somebody was facing you. So the left part of the left part of the heart and the right part of the heart. The right side receives blood from the body, right? So you have the right part here. So it's coming from the body, which means that it's already been the oxygen has already been taken out of it, right? It's already dumped some of the oxygen at the cells. And so what's coming back is the waste gas, and that's coming up to the heart. And where does that go? Well, it goes forward, it goes up, goes into the lungs. Well, what's happening there? Well, notice that when it enters the lungs, that it looks like it's blue. And the reason why it's blue is because the oxygen has been used in the body. Well, guess what? You inhale, your lungs get that oxygen. It's dumping off the carbon dioxide. The red blood cells are picking up the oxygen, and then the blood from the lungs goes back into the left-hand side of the heart. It gets pumped out. It gets pumped out to the body. Okay. So there are two sides, and in between, there are ventricles and atria here. So there's like 4 rooms. It doesn't really show it here, but there's like 4 chambers. And so the bottom is pumps. And in between here, there are valves. And so as it pumps, the valve opens, the blood rushes in, and then the valve is supposed to close. And then it pumps again, and it pushes the blood out. So the heart is an amazing, amazing organ. And so this is exactly why we can't separate the circulatory system from the respiratory system, right? The heart is pumping the blood around, but the lungs are getting oxygen for the blood and taking carbon dioxide out of the blood. So it's an amazing partnership. So 17 is the next slide. And we're looking at the blood vessels, okay? And so we said a little bit earlier that there are arteries, there are veins, and there are capillaries. So when you're trying to learn these in high school, it's best to remember that arteries carry blood away from the heart. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Okay, so if it's carrying the blood away from the heart, it's come from the lungs and it's going back out. So arteries carry oxygenated blood. Okay, veins are blood vessels that are going back to the heart, and they're going to the heart so that they can go to the lungs to get reoxygenated. And then capillaries are how the arteries and the veins connect, right? So if this is an artery coming from your heart, say this is, I don't know, cells in your arm. So it's going to go to the arteries here. It's going to dump the oxygenated blood off. It's going to dump off the oxygen here. It's going to pick up the carbon dioxide. So notice that it's getting a little bit more blue, and then it gets a little bit more blue. So it has oxygenated cells here at the capillaries, which are very, very thin. That's where all of that exchange of gas is occurring at the cellular level. And then the deoxygenated blood then travels to the veins, and it goes back up to the heart to be pumped out to the lungs to get reoxygenated. Make sure you understand that this is a closed loop, right? You don't have blood dripping into any parts of your body. Well, it's not supposed to be anyway, right? And so you don't have open systems. The circulatory system should be completely closed off. When we look at how many miles of blood vessels, this is how small these capillaries are. So, and by the way, capillaries are typically what gives you a black and blue. So when you or me hitting the front of the desk at school constantly, right, I always have this line of black and blues across my thigh. Well, why is that? Because I bump into it, it breaks the capillaries. So these little blood vessels in here get broken, and then they heal, right? So that's what a black and blue is. It's broken capillaries. And so if you were to take all of the blood vessels, tells you how small these things are. If you were to take all of the blood vessels in your body and you were to line them up, it would be 60,000 miles. 60,000 miles. That's about two Earth's circumference is what? 24,000? So that's like 2.5 times around the Earth in blood vessels in one body. Amazing. All right, so let's go to the next one. This link shows the GIF files I pulled from that site in the next two. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and present this now just so it's a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, so this is where it gets really cool. So you have arteries that are coming from the heart, right? They've come from the heart. They've been to the lungs already. And so they are traveling do-de-do-de-do-de-do-de-do. And they are delivering oxygen. So this is oxygenated blood, which is why it's red. Okay, they denote it as oxygenated blood. And so the arteries, as they come around, the biggest arteries are leaving your heart and entering your heart. They're big fat arteries. So like the I can't remember the name of the artery. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. The aorta. The aorta is the biggest artery. And then this is the superior vena cava. Okay, so these are both really, really big blood vessels. And so that's at the beginning and the very end of the journey. So oxygenated blood comes from the heart and then it goes into these capillaries. Remember, this is where they're connected. And so the cells here are all getting oxygen dumped to them, right? So they're all getting oxygenated. And so then these other capillaries here, and the combination of all this mess is called a capillary bed, by the way. And so these is deoxygenated and then it goes back up and it's going to head to the heart to go out to head out to the lungs to get reoxygenated. So just remember that it's a closed loop. And that if it's coming from the heart, it is oxygenated blood because it's come from the lungs. It gets sent out to the body, dumps off its oxygen cargo, picks up carbon dioxide, goes back to the lungs. You exhale, the carbon dioxide gets released. You inhale again, oxygen gets back on those cells, and it's a great big old loop. I love this. So here we have blood vessels. Okay, notice that we talked about that blood cells look a little bit like a jelly donut that somebody just kind of squished out the inside, that they're concave, right? And so not only do they fit through the blood vessels better, but there's more surface area to hold oxygen. Look at these different colors. So if you're just looking at these colors, what can you tell me about it? What did we just say about the color of the blood, right? So it's bright red when it's oxygenated, right? And it gets oxygenated when it's leaving the lungs. It's already been oxygenated. Or like if we cut ourselves and the blood is exposed to the air, right? Then the oxygen in the air reacts as well. So this would be an example of oxygenated blood. This would be an example of deoxygenated blood. Notice that it's more on the blue side, right? It has taken carbon dioxide from the cells and it's bringing it back to the lungs in order to get rid of it. And so visually, if you think of it as being two different colors, it helps. Know that in your body, you don't have blue and red. Okay, your blood is never, ever blue, ever, 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 ever. But I have to tell you, when I started teaching, the man that ran the science department in my school, his name was Mr. Haruzek, and he was fabulous. And I remember him telling me that when he was a bit older than me, but that when he was in college, that they actually taught him that blood was blue in some cases. And that's absolutely not the case. Your blood is never blue. It's just the way they show it in textbooks and in pictures so we can get a good visual. Then the last thing that I want to show you here, excuse me. And so you have blood vessels here, and these are nuclei, right? So I love this little graphic. So purple is nuclei. These are all individual cells, and they're the cells of blood vessels, right? And so you have these red blood cells, right? They're concave. They have that dip. Remember that squished out jelly donut? And these guys leaving the blood vessel are white blood cells. Okay, they squeeze through the cells. Now, white blood cells fight off infection in your body. Okay. So we're not really going to talk about the immune system because we don't have time. But when you get to high school and college, it's fabulous. It's amazingly interesting. And given COVID-19 right now, learning about your immune system is fabulous. So I think that's about it for now. So we're going to stop this here. I'm going to link it. Remember at the top, I'm going to link it at the top of the PowerPoint under respiratory system. So when you look, you're going to be able to find it. You're going to be able to find it at the top of this right here. I'm going to link it right here. And so if you want to just do this little chunk of it, you have the option to do that. Thanks, everybody. Next time.